Guys, how are we all? I think I'm live. Got it. Perfect. Hey guys, how you going? Good. Great day today. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit all over the place today. I just got back from a conference on the Gold Coast. Bear with me 2 seconds. Sorry about that. I hope everyone is enjoying their beautiful Tuesday. It did look like a beautiful day here today. I'm really excited to start doing this next level, or some might say professional investing. So tonight what I'm going to be running through is a bit about renovations. So when I talk about renovations, there's different strategies you can use renovations. In Australia, it's hard to make money just off renovating, but I'm going to give you some tips where I believe you can and can't do it. And then next week, so I've got part one tonight. Next Tuesday, I'm going to go through some actual strategies and just go through some templates and strategies that I've seen or used myself. So you can actually see and put it into practice, or you could say it's like the practical part of it, so that you can fully understand how the renovation is going to work in each and every strategy. Alrighty guys, so let's get a crack along. Now, like always, any questions or comments, whack them into the comment section. I will try and get to any questions you have. But I do try and keep our sessions down to 20, 25 minutes if I can, so no one gets too bored as well. And I do have some notes with me tonight because I want to make sure I don't miss anything for you guys. But yeah, I'm really pumped to start doing this with you guys. The next several months is going to be really exciting for me to show you what you can and can't do. But just remember, everything I'm talking about, it's general in nature. I'm not an accountant, like I'm not a lawyer. I'm just giving some suggestions and some ideas on what you can and can't do. But yeah, exciting stuff. I just want to open your mind just to show you what's out there in the marketplace. So tonight's about renovation. So for those of you who are watching so far tonight, have any of you actually done a renovation on your own home or as part of an investment strategy? Just whack that in the comments while I'm doing through this, because guys, there is about a 5-second delay for me to see your comments from what I'm talking. So feel free to comment if you have done a renovation in the past, guys. So let's get started. So when you're doing a renovation, and realistically, this is really every property transactions you're doing, negotiation will start from day one. So that's from when you initially see it online, or it could be when you get contacted by someone within your network to say they've got this property available. Because a successful property investor will actually have a network of potential real estate agents or buyers agents to work with to get these properties. Say, for example, on the weekend, I was at a thing called ARIC, which is a huge real estate conference held every year on the Gold Coast. I'm there with the leading real estate agents of Australia, just networking. They're the people I like to get involved with because they're the ones who are professional and can bring me good sites, good opportunities, good properties for me and also for our members. Okay, so negotiations, they start from day one. Don't think that they don't. You have to know what you can and can't do. So a couple of pointers here I want to come across to you guys. I always ask for and will not take a property on unless it has what we call an extended settlement period. Most states will have a settlement period of 4 weeks or 6 weeks, but what I look for is a minimum of 3 months, and there's reasons behind that. So the reason why I want a 3-month settlement period is because I want to have time to organize my renovation. As the longer the property sits there, untenanted, needs work done, it's costing you money. It's costing you interest out of your loan again and again every single month. So the quicker, the better. So the first one is always opt for an extended settlement, minimum 3 months. And the next thing you want to do, and this is sometimes very difficult if the property is occupied, but if it has a tenant and the tenant's moving out and the property could be vacant for some period, what you really want is early access to the property. And what I mean by that, not necessarily the keys. Ideally, it would be fantastic to have the keys, but access so you can do some measuring up. In some cases, if it's really a good opportunity where you do get the keys, the vendor may allow you to start demolishing. So removal of kitchens, removal of bathrooms, removal of walls. Sometimes they do limit what major structure you can and can't touch until you physically own the property. But you've got to put it out there, guys. If you don't ask the question and press that certain clauses in the contract that you want to have that, you're never going to get it. You have to ask the question. So basically, removal of all the debris, renovation, all that hard stuff that you would probably do yourself. You wouldn't necessarily pay for that unless there was asbestos involved. And of course, you want to make sure if you're in a position where it's part of a strategy where you're doing a DA subdivision off the back or something along those lines, you want to have early access to council. So what I mean by that is you want to have permission from the vendor that you can lodge plans with the council, even though you don't own the property yet. And that's a big thing for me because council, like at the moment, council approvals are definitely behind, basically due to the volume. But having access early, getting all your measurements done, getting any plans drawn you may need to get done, if it has to go through council, I'd be definitely doing that straight away. Early access is very, very important. And in some cases, paying a minimal rent. So say, for example, I don't know, you say you bought a $500,000 property, it was rented at $400 a week, the tenant moves out, the actual vendor or the seller has the option to leave it vacant where they're open to potential security, they don't have any income coming in. You can offer a smaller rent, say $200 a week, and that gives you early access. That may or may not cost you $1,000 over 5 weeks, but you will thank me at the end of the whole project by having that 5 weeks early access for that $1,000. But one thing to keep in mind, don't spend too much on the property as far as renovating the property before you take ownership. And why I say that is removal of certain parts of the house. That's all just manual labor in most cases. Council plans, getting them drawn up, getting them lodged. That's not really a huge expense for you. But if you start putting in a new kitchen, say you're installing a new kitchen, installing a new bathroom, you can outlay $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 pretty quickly. But you've got to be careful. If you don't own the property, something could go wrong and the seller may not be able to complete the purchase. People forget. Most people think it's the buyer that can't complete the purchase, but there is all that 1% chance that the seller can't complete the purchase for many different reasons. They might have financial difficulty and the bank sometimes can come in and take over the property and withdraw your sale. And another one is the vendor could die. A lot of people don't realize that. They could get hit by a bus. Doesn't matter how young and vigilant they are, they could get hit by a bus tomorrow. So therefore, that's going to slow your settlement right down. And you don't want to outlay too much money until you know you physically own the property and have the keys in place. Because just keep in mind, there's always clauses in the contract that if one of the parties die, they potentially have an out clause. So if you put your deposit down, obviously you'll get your deposit back. But if you add too much value to the property, I don't know, maybe the kids might see value in keeping the property, and then not everyone's ethical. I like to be a very ethical person, but not every single person's ethical out there and might take advantage of something. The next one, if you aren't a handy person, I see many men and women who do not touch tools on a regular basis. I would not take on a major renovation adventure if you are not handy at all, especially even with demolishing. It's just not for you. You're just going to hurt yourself. And potentially, demolish the wrong part or electrocute or whatever. But if you're not a handy person, I wouldn't suggest to do renovation, especially on the major scale, because labor costs, if you're outlaying labor costs to potential tradies, that is one of the biggest costs of a renovation. So the more you can lower the physical labor cost is where you want to be when it comes to doing a renovation. And of course, with your first few renovations, you may have to hire some equipment you don't have or potentially purchase some equipment you don't have. And even though that may dig into your profit, long term, it's much beneficial because some hire companies, you sort of got to weigh it up. If you're going to touch that certain tool 5 times in the next year, you're probably better off buying it brand new, even though you won't use it regularly, but it'll last you forever. And of course, you've got your cheap brands out there, like what's the one out there? I think it's called Ozito. I think it's called. I've got a few tools myself. Now, because I don't use them on a commercial scale, I don't really care. You know, they all come with big 5-year guarantees, 3-year guarantees. And in some cases, I think I've got a few tools I actually have never bought a new one. I'll just keep taking it back. All right, guys, so that's a big one. They can eat into your profit margin, but they set you up long term. It's like basically anyone starting out in a business, because you've got to realize when you're getting into professional property investing, you are starting a physical business. A simple paint. It's like, and definitely if you're going to paint the inside of a property, definitely go with the spray option. It's always better to put do the ceilings in the spray, the undercoat in the spray. Of course, you've got to roll of the top sections, but it'll save you so much time just taping up the windows and all the area that has to be taped up. Front fence sometimes helps, a nice little picket fence, garden, high pressure cleaning. They can make a huge difference to the first impressions of the property, because upon resale, that is what people are going to look at immediately. And of course, staging. So for those of you who don't know what staging is, in our office, we have a young lady that does staging as well as a bit of a side hustle. But staging is basically hiring furniture for a 4 to 6 week period to make your house set out perfectly, because a lot of people don't have that vision, especially with a vacant property. Vacant homes aren't as easy to sell as if you stage it. And they can, I forget the exact cost, but between 3 and 5 grand can get you a really good staging package there. Definitely worthwhile. And always, like I mentioned before, learn to do as much of the renovation as possible yourself. But you've got to take into consideration time is money. So if you're dragging the chain or you do not have the time, that's where it's sometimes more beneficial to put someone in place and pay for the labor, because time is money, guys. Return on investment. I always talk about it. People think they can spend 10 weekends out there doing a renovation, but you've got to think about your family time. And you also have to think about, if you paid someone, you can get rid of the property a lot quicker and take your margin a lot sooner. That's definitely something to consider, guys. That's 100%. All right. And like I personally have a bit of a spreadsheet when it comes to renovations. I'm not a huge renovator. I would more normally use it as part of a strategy. And in that spreadsheet, I keep track of my spending, because you need to keep track of your spending, because it's all about compliance with the tax man. So keep track of your spending. If you are doing a lot of renovations as well, I do suggest to potentially have a separate bank account. So when you're swiping your card, you can get your receipts and go back to it. Or say, for example, myself, I have a Power Pass account with Bunnings. I don't really do it as much for the discounts as keeping track of what's being spent at the Bunnings warehouse. Unfortunately, when I walk into Bunnings to get one thing, like every other guy and girl, you come out with 10 things. I don't know why I don't just collect the trolley when I first get in there, because I end up coming out with too much anyway. But you definitely got to keep all your receipts for tax. Tax is important. You're in a business. So record keeping is what we call it. Record keeping in most circumstances is 5 or 7 years, depending on what structure you're under, whether you're under a personal structure or a company structure. I always recommend, with the receipts, all these new carbon receipts, they don't last very long. So you don't want to be in that situation where you potentially have an audit. I do suggest to scan all your receipts in at the end of the job and upload them to a cloud-based storage facility. So the two I use are Google Drive and iCloud, which is pretty sure iCloud's through Apple, but I use that as a bit of a, where I store a lot of my receipts when it comes to my personal investing, because what you want to do is you want to make sure, if you do get an audit, you got everything collated for each property to a certain folder. Of course, some of the suppliers you may split it across more than one property, but that's the best way I'm doing it. And of course, you've got apps that can scan it in too. You don't necessarily need a fandangled printer, because you don't want the images to be scanned too big. So for those of you that don't know and who have an iPhone, where most of us would normally have an iPhone or a Samsung or something along those lines, in the notes section of an iPhone, there is actually a scanning option. I won't go through that tonight, but you can actually scan heaps of stuff just through the notes section. But of course, you can just take a photo. But the problem with the photo is they normally come out a little bit too big, the size, so it does eat up any storage space you've got. Where the scanning side from the notes section, that's pretty good for me. I think I've got iScan and Guru Scan as well, but unless you pay for the proper version of it, it's not as good. But the notes one I've been using a fair bit, and it's quite easy to use and it's quite good. Now, guys, I wanted to just go through this next bit here. When you're looking for opportunities, I'm just going to share my iPad here, guys. Bear with me. I'm going to share my iPad, see if I can get this to work right. I'm going to draw up. So when you're looking for opportunities, and this, what I'm going to show you now, it's not about, say, for example, it's not about a renovation as part of another deal where you might have 2 or 3 strategies going on, like subdivision or whatever, all at the same time. This is if you just wanted to buy a property, renovate it, and on-sell it with it as a one strategy deal. Now, it's not something I would do, but a lot of people want to do that. So if you want that, you've got to take into consideration your stamp duties, your capital gains tax, your selling costs, which can really eat up into that. But let's look at the way I would look at it if that's something I did. So basically, bear with me. I'll see if I can get this to work. I think I have. looks like it's working okay. So if you're out there in the marketplace, the best way to get gain is to add value to the property, but not just value, but potentially sometimes size. So I'm just going to draw this up for you guys, what I'm talking about here. This is the best way that I feel I can explain it to you. So if you had 3 separate marketplaces, right? And in those marketplaces, you had, say, 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and 2-bedroom marketplaces. And this, of course, would be in exactly the same suburb as well. So if you had that, the price variance may be, say, 400,000 all the way up to 700,000, depending on the property. And, oh, hang on, forgot the 0 there, 700,000 there. So as you can see, what I've done here, I've got a 4-bedroom market, which is between the $600,000 and $700,000 price bracket, 3-bedroom market, which is between a $500,000 and $600,000 price bracket, and of course a 2-bedroom market, which is between $400,000 and $500,000 marketplace. So what we do is, right, the best way that I see you putting this together is basically is you buy down here. So what you'd want to do is you want to buy a bottom of the market 3-bedroom property. So that's at the, obviously in this work, that's the whole strategy you're doing. It's a bottom of the market 3-bedroom property in the 3-bedroom market. And what you want to do is potentially add a 4th bedroom, potentially a bathroom. But what you're doing is you're taking a bottom of the range 3-bedroom property out of the bottom of the 3-bedroom market and renovating it into a 4-bedroom top level quality in the top of the 4-bedroom market. So what that means is, just with basic numbers, is what you're doing is you've got in this here, you've got $200,000 of potentially market value to play with to be able to get your 3-bedroom, run down at the bottom of the market property, renovating it into a 4-bedroom, high quality, top of the market property, which of course will sell quick. You've got a $200,000 margin. So when you're doing your research, you want to make sure that you have that availability as far as a margin between the bottom range of a 3-bedroom and the top range of a 4-bedroom. The best way to do that is realestate.com.au. That'll give you all the answers for that, just by looking at the sold properties and potentially the properties that are currently for sale. But that gives you more opportunity to make a bigger margin and bigger profit, guys. That is the best way I've always seen a renovating scenario work, unless you're into the big bucks. So what I mean by that is you're into the big bucks. That's with the big $1 million properties. That's where you will have, much more opportunity, you could say, to make more money. But you're talking about millions, you're talking about huge stamp duty, huge sales commissions, and also, which worries me more, is huge risk. That's what I don't want you to have, okay? Not too much, especially your first few. If you're a builder, for example, and you know what's going on, you can make it all work, fine, go for your life. But if you're not, I wouldn't do that, especially for your first one, okay? Especially for your first one. All right, guys, bear with me 2 seconds. I lost where I was up to. Okay. All right, so the next thing is, just coming to an end there tonight, is, like I mentioned before, stamp duty, capital gains tax, and agent's commission are the big 3 costs you're going to be involved outside of your renovation costs. So make sure you're well aware of all those put in place. And for those of you that don't know, capital gains tax in most cases is you want to hold the property for 12 months to get the best opportunity to make capital gains tax, to eliminate as much capital gains tax. But that could cost you money because you're holding onto that property. The bank might not give you any more. So you've really got to weigh all that up when you're doing your renovation, 100%. A big one I've seen where people have made mistakes is always check the zoning certificate. So what I mean by that is everyone has a zoning certificate. There's many different reasons. You've got flood zones, fire zones, and another big one is getting the best use of the land. If you're not 100% sure on the zoning certificate, I always recommend to go to that New South Wales planning portal, or what's the Queensland? I forget the Queensland one off the top of my head. And they'll give you a bit of an idea of what you can and can't do with the land. And then if you feel as if you may have a better opportunity with that land instead of just an outright renovation, you can then, of course, put in the place, send that to a private town planner, and they can give you a lot more ideas for a fee, of course. But it might cost $2,000, but it could increase your margin by 50. So it's always worthwhile because if you are doing professional investing, you will always have. Well, if you one of my clients anyway, you'll always have a buffer or slush fund for things like that, where potentially you spend $2,000. It could be a total waste of money, but it's an opportunity where you need to make sure that you've done your research and done your investigations. The biggest thing before I finish up for tonight, guys, is don't forget next week I'm going to be going through some practical of how you can get it all to come together, and something there might get your juices flowing. But time is money, so keep a track of your hours. This is what I do. I keep a track of hours I spend on each project, and that could be anywhere from organising the purchase, organising the materials. It's not just the time on site. Obviously, organising materials, etc., you will get a lot more fluent and a lot quicker at organising that, because you'll have your contacts. But what I do is I make sure I allocate an hourly rate, because you've got to realise, if you don't allocate yourself an hourly rate, so if the whole project cost you, say it took you 200 hours and you made $2,000, or say $20,000, you're working off, whatever that is, $20 an hour. So what you've got to work out is your hourly rate, and always take a bit of a time stamp on the time you're working with it. Obviously, you're going to have thinking time where you're just mulling it over. You might not take that into consideration, but definitely take all that into consideration, because you've got to make sure that strategy is for you. Because if you're currently earning, $50, $60 an hour, but you're making $30 an hour working on the weekends trying to become a professional investor, that's not the strategy for you guys. Obviously, you wouldn't take your first one into account there, because your first one will always be the longest one, will always be the one where you spend the most money. But of course, definitely go through the actual strategy of it as well. Alrighty, guys. Now, guys, do we have any questions? Do we have any questions out there tonight before we go? I don't want to talk your heads off too much. Nope, all good. In the link, you've got the Calendly link that Jess has whacked in there. That's a 15-minute booking link that if you have any questions that I can share with you and discuss with you, that I could possibly give you a bit of direction. Feel free to book in a strategy call. It takes 15 minutes. It's a quick call. And unfortunately, guys, I do limit the 15 minutes because it is a free call. And I just can give you some direction. I'm out there to help people get ahead and through investing, definitely. I'm 100% on board with that. Guys, I'm Wayne Jessup, the Property Bloke, bringing real property, real strategies to get real results to the everyday Australian. I look forward to seeing you next week or throughout the week. Have a great one.